Okay. So last week when we met, we talked about financial statements, what they are. We talked about your aging reports, and we discussed your QuickBooks, and essentially how to compile all of your information and what is the best way to account for your business information. For myself, as I mentioned, I am a CPA and I am a QuickBooks Pro advisor. And in my past experience, I've also worked in corporate America as an accountant. So QuickBooks is a system that I'm very comfortable with using. In corporate America, I can recall seeing QuickBooks reports. And so it wasn't for the company that I worked for, but the company actually had a controlling interest in another company. But that company they had the controlling interest in was a $100 million company. And that company was still utilizing QuickBooks. And you can tell the reports because they all look the same. So for myself, I am a big proponent of QuickBooks. As I mentioned before, I'm a QuickBooks Pro advisor. 80% of small business owners utilize QuickBooks. For that reason, most third-party app providers, software providers, people of that nature, when they make softwares, they make their softwares so that it can communicate with QuickBooks. So for instance, I have a number of clients that may use a point of sale software. That point of sale software, and there's a bunch of them. There's Vagaro, there's Lightspeed. I believe that Square can also act as a point of sale software. So what that means is, as you are interacting with your clients and you're making a sale, that software, that third-party app, will automatically account for the transaction that has occurred. And if you have put enough information in there, it may even account for the ingredients. So for instance, you sell a pie, right? And you've already put in your system that if you sell a pie, you want for the sale of that pie to be recorded as $8. And then you decide that out of that $8, you want $1 to go to cost of goods sold, $1 to go to packaging, and then the remaining $6, that's your profit. Okay, with your point of sale system, you can map it so that when that transaction occurs, it automatically communicates that information to QuickBooks. Okay, so that's a little bit more complex and higher function of QuickBooks, but it is definitely something that we can map and have done in QuickBooks or perform in QuickBooks. But it kind of talks to the capability. And it also talks to the fact that you have other software providers as well as app providers that are out there developing programs that work with QuickBooks. And so that's one of the advantages in working with one of the larger players. And of course, QuickBooks is one of the largest. As a quick note, I may have mentioned last week, but it goes to stress again, I prefer the QuickBooks online version, and we'll actually talk about that in just a minute, but I prefer the QuickBooks online version. With that version, there are two versions. There is the desktop version. You can probably purchase that at the online big box store. It's a one-time purchase. However, with the online version, you typically receive a CD. It may even be a download, but that accounting software is on your computer. If you work with an accountant that uses either the desktop version, or there are other accounting softwares that function in the same way, they're not cloud-based, it's your accounting information will only be on their computer. So if you want to run a report, you have to contact that accountant. You can't just, on your own, run your own report. And I really do like that feature of QuickBooks being online and cloud-based, because it gives a lot of the power and the control to the business owner. You can then just go on and choose a report that you need to run, and you'll see how easy it is to run reports and then move forward. And so with QuickBooks, there are different levels that you can purchase. So I'm going to start off here, and let's see. If you give me one moment, I'm going to quickly go to the website, and then I'm going to share my screen for the purposes of the Zoom. Okay, so I am screen sharing. It looks like, I believe that you guys should be able to see the QuickBooks screen. And so one of the main things that I want to point out are the plans and the pricing. So before we get started and before we get into it, with QuickBooks, you've got a number of different plans you can choose from. The QuickBooks Online version, there are approximately 4 different plans that are available. So it's going to pull it up quickly in just a moment. Typically, what you'll find is that there are, oh, it's moving faster than I wanted. Okay. Typically, what you'll find is that they will run some sort of special that you can take advantage of. So it looks like right now we've got 50% off for the first 3 months. Now they're starting off here with this simple start plan, and this may actually be QuickBooks Self-Employed. And if that's the case, this is typically what it is. Let's see here. Typically, I recommend that clients go with the QuickBooks Essentials. So this is the first time I'm saying the Simple Start Plan. I can't speak on that. That used to be offered. It went away. And even prior months, because QuickBooks is always adjusting. The lowest end plan was the Self-Employed plan. With that plan, and it was approximately $10 a month, with that plan, you did not receive a full set of financial statements. With that plan, all you received was the profit and loss statement. The issue with that is that, one, as a professional, I can't perform a bank reconciliation. And that is key in determining if your financial statements are correct or not. 2, as a business owner, you don't have a full set of financial statements. So with that lowest end plan, and then once again, I'm not sure if that's Simple Start or not. Previously, the lowest end plan was QuickBooks Self-Employed. With the lowest end plan, you may think that you have QuickBooks, but without that balance sheet and that statement of retained earnings, you don't have a full set of financial statements. And that's important for those people that have, especially last year, that wanted to apply for grants, if you want to apply for loans, or if you are looking for investors. So anyone, any end user that may need to see your financial statements, if that lowest end plan doesn't provide the balance sheet or the full set of financial statements, it's not going to be beneficial to you. So let's click on this one real quick. I'm curious to see if it does provide a balance sheet. It just goes to payroll. I will say this, I am a QuickBooks fan, but I do not recommend QuickBooks Payroll. I typically recommend for payroll that you go with one of the larger payroll providers like Paychex or ADP. I have had experience where I was not happy with the service that I received from QuickBooks Payroll, and that's in both of the service offerings they provide. So as such, I never really recommend that. I want to look here and see if they provide me with a definition of what you receive with that simple start. Because at that price point, let's learn more. At $12.50 a month or $25 a month after the introductory period, that becomes enticing. The next level up is QuickBooks Essentials. That was $25 a month or $50 after the introductory period. Typically, once again, when the previous plan was self-employed and I was not happy with that, I had all of my clients with QuickBooks Essentials that provides you with the full set of financial statements. That is the one that I typically recommend. QuickBooks Plus. With QuickBooks Plus, which is the next step up at $40 a month or $80 after the introductory plan, you have the option to add in inventory. As food entrepreneurs, you don't need to add in inventory. Even if you maintain an inventory, because of the nature of food, your inventory will more than likely be obsolete by the end of the month. So your inventory always turns over. Therefore, I just put that in cost of goods sold. Inventory would be better suited for someone that is such as a retail provider, such as clothing or something of that nature, something that they're going to have from period to period, and that we need to mark that. So for QuickBooks Plus, once again, you get inventory. I'm not sure if that's something that you would necessarily need. Also, you receive projects. Projects allows you to add in different lines of business. So on the P&L, it will, you can either run just one profit and loss statement, or you can run a profit and loss statement that is classified by, that is classes, by the classes, and then you'll see, you may decide that, hey, this is Dale's Pies, but then I also have a garden, and then I also provide catering. So that I have classes, one says pies, one class says gardens, one says catering, and each one will be a mini or a miniature profit and loss statement, and they will all add up to the main profit and loss statement. So once again, you may not need that level. And then finally, projects is similar to classes. And then the final level is QuickBooks Advanced. That is for large organizations or enterprises. So I just want to quickly see, yes.
So if you make pies and you have some in the freezer of different varieties, so you might have them longer than a month, do you need to account for that in an inventory something?
So yes, and for the purposes of the Zoom, I'm going to repeat questions so that everyone knows what was said. But essentially it was asked because I mentioned that your food purveyors, more than likely you won't have inventory. The question was asked if you are freezing food, or if there is an instance in which you expect to have inventory longer than 30 days, would you need to monitor inventory? And I'm going to say the answer is yes, you will need to monitor inventory. However, from a QuickBooks standpoint, I would still recommend Essentials, and that you work with your accountant or you work with myself to monitor the inventory. And the reason why I say that is because the inventory in QuickBooks at times can be clunky. And your inventory and you moving it you're gonna want it to be a little bit more nimble. Also, once again, if you're working with point of sale systems, it also is probably managing inventory. So you can always upgrade or downgrade your QuickBooks options. So if inventory is an issue, then I would first talk with whomever you're working with, but I would hold off on Plus just for inventory. Yes.
Like Christy said, for 30 days. So what if you move your inventory, your product inside of 2 weeks, and then replenish
So the question is, if we're able to turn over our inventory in under 30 days, do we still need to monitor inventory? And I would say no, because I would simply mark it as cost of goods sold. So the way inventory works is that essentially, let's say I purchase inventory, right? I'm not going to consider that an expense at first. I may just put it on my books, my balance sheet, as an asset. Theoretically, if I go out of business tomorrow, I can sell that inventory and earn money. So it's still an asset. It's not yet an expense, right? So if I'm going to keep inventory on my books for more than 30 days, I'm going to need to monitor it so that I know how much inventory that I have. And when I do make the sale, I can take away from inventory and add it to my cost of goods sold. And essentially, I'd move it from my balance sheet to my profit and loss statement. And the argument that I make is that if you are moving your inventory under 30 days, probably the greatest frequency that you will be looking at your financial statements is on a monthly basis. So it really only matters what happens within that 30-day period. So in your case, in the question asker's case, their inventory turned over every 2 weeks. It would add an unnecessary step to put it into inventory, whereas instead we would just put it in cost of goods sold and expense it immediately, especially if your inventory would spoil at the end of 30 days anyway. So if we know we can't keep it regardless, we're going to write this off in the time that we do it. And keep in mind that with the accounting that we're doing, accounting is inherently complex. So you want to try to make as many steps as simple as you can as possible. There's no need to add in, it doesn't help anyone to add in additional complexity where we don't need it. So here I'm looking at the QuickBooks Simple Start, and I see a lot of where it says track income and expenses. I see where it says invoice and accept payments. And I don't see it where it says, manage your balance sheet. I'm going to, for now, until I see something that tells me differently, I think that Simple Start is probably like QuickBooks Self-Employed. So while the pricing seems to be a lot cheaper, you're not going to get everything you need. I think more than likely, you're going to need to start off with QuickBooks Essentials, and then Essentials on up will provide you with everything you need. I just want to see the Learn More section on the QuickBooks Essentials and see if there's a difference. And then we're going to take just a break while I log in. Let's see here. Oh no, they still offer self-employed. So I stand corrected. It may be a good deal to go with Simple Start. They may have brought Simple Start back because they still offer self-employed, which is a significantly lesser product. So Simple Start at $12.50 a month and topping out at $25 a month may be a very good option for most of you, and it's going to provide you with all the services that you need. So let's take a short break so that I can sign in, and then once we do that, I can show you a lot of the key features that QuickBooks has to offer. So that's great. So, once again, I'm repeating the questions because some people can't hear it on the video. The question was mentioned that we're looking at a new accounting system because the previous accounting system is having issues connecting to the bank. And one of the things that I mentioned previously is that 80% of small business users use QuickBooks. So as a result, most outside and third-party vendors make QuickBooks so that you can communicate with it. So it actually does it very well. Now there are some banks where they're harder to connect with than others, or they constantly get kicked off, but that has more to do with the security aspect of it. But as the questionnaire just mentioned, one of the main features is being able to link the bank accounts. And by being able to do that, you can bring in your transactions with complete confidence that you've got everything included and not have to worry about human error.
Now, I just need to know if it connects with my bank, or do I need to switch banks?
Well, QuickBooks will connect to PNC. I have clients connected to PNC.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so because I am a QuickBooks Pro advisor, QuickBooks provides me with a sample company account. And so once we get back into the Zoom, that's what we'll be looking at. So we won't be looking at anyone's actual information. We'll actually be looking at the sample account that they provide to me. So here's a typical QuickBooks screen. Now there are some additional tabs that you will see because what I have is the accountant's view. So what QuickBooks does essentially is they allow myself to have a free account as long as I go out and I offer it to people that choose to use QuickBooks. However, I chose QuickBooks because, as I said, it is the most used software out there. But I do have an accountant's account. So if you notice up here, this briefcase here, accountant's tools, you probably wouldn't have that that tab there. And typically, there's an extra tab actually that I view that they don't show here that you would not have. QuickBooks is highly customizable. Not only is it highly customizable, there are a ton of different ways to get to the same information. So just a very quick, if you look on this first page, this page is called the dashboard. It's designed to give you a high-level overview of what you would see on your QuickBooks. I don't necessarily utilize this page, nor do I suggest that people use this page a lot because it is that high-level view. I would prefer that when looking at your company information, you go directly to the reports, and that's going to provide you with the best information out there available. But this high-level page, this high-level view page is available. So it shows you get things done, and then they also have a business overview. And I think for me, like this profit and loss number here, this expenses number, it never really reports out to what's actually reflective in your report. So I actually had a client where they would be a little bit up in arms, and then once we looked at the actual reports, which are reconciled to your bank statements, it provided a more complete picture. So once again, I don't prefer this page, but it is available. One of the things that you can do is add your logo. And it's pretty cool because the logo will appear not only on your page, but it will also appear on any financial statements that you send out to end users. It will appear on invoices that you send out to clients. It'll appear on estimates. So, for that small business owner, it gives you a very professional appearance. And so does QuickBooks as a whole. So those people that are looking at these particular documents, they don't know, how big of an organization you are or any of that because you provide that professional appearance. As I mentioned, there's a number of ways to get to different places. If we look over here, we've got this gear icon. It's going to take you to more of the administrative parts of QuickBooks where you've got your account and settings, which is really just setting up your business within QuickBooks. You won't use it that much. Manage users. Different QuickBooks levels offers different numbers of users that can be available to your account. So I believe at the QuickBooks Plus level, you get 3 users. So that could be yourself, that could be someone who works for you that is maybe inputting accounts receivables or payables or things of that nature. It could be your accountant. In this screen, this is where you would go to invite someone such as myself to be your accountant. And I would be included in the accounting firm. That would allow me to bring you into my list of clients and then I can remotely access your account. So you have access to your information, and then I have access to your information. So I can be in there doing stuff, you can be in there looking at stuff, we can be talking about it together, and you don't have to worry about being on someone's machine. So you've always got that access to your information. And that's important because we all work different hours. Not everyone is only running their business full time. So if you want to be looking at information at 10 o'clock at night because that's when the house is finally quiet, you have access to that information. So that's key. Also, within the manage user section, you can restrict other users' access to information. So if you have someone that you just want to update your receivables or things of that nature, you can restrict them from being able to see what's in the bank account. And so that's important as well. Custom form styles on this page, you can customize a lot. So once again, your logo can appear on your invoicing. You can create your own messages. You can change the color of your invoice. So there's a few things you can do. I always tell people to get in there and play with it. Once again, this custom form styles, I'm going to show you where you're going to go into that page from somewhere else. So just remember, QuickBooks, especially this particular format, is a lot more user-friendly than the desktop version. Also, the user interface is very user-friendly. Chart of accounts, we're going to talk about that in just a moment, but that's essentially where all of your general ledger accounts live. QuickBooks Labs is interesting. Third-party app providers provide apps for QuickBooks. If QuickBooks has not decided if they want to fully integrate that app into the system, they will put it into labs and allow people to test it out, play with it, give feedback, and if it's popular enough, they will graduate it to the system. The list section. List is cool. This is great if you're using inventory or even just items that you sell. Even if you're creating invoices, you have to have some sort of list. So you might have, lemon pie, lemon meringue pie, lime pie, apple pie, cherry pie, and have those prices already on your list. So you'll see when we go to the invoice, all you're doing is selecting, 1 cherry pie, 10 apple pies, the price automatically populates, and all you have to do is enter in the quantity that is being sold to. And that's also in the products and services. They also offer recurring transactions. You can add attachments. So just some tools here. They've got the tools section. I was talking with a larger client today. They're going to start ordering checks. You can import data, export data. That's more so for myself. Audit look. Once again, that's more so for myself. I can get in and see where people have gone. So as you can see, the gear icon is more for a lot of that background information. Some of it you'll be using, but some of it you won't be using. A lot of it you may not be using. With this button here, these 3 stripes here, I can simply get rid of that side tab here should I choose. So that's pretty cool. This tab, this sidebar here is how I navigate my way through most of the information. So as you notice, we've got another tab here, this new tab. This here takes you to the same information that this here takes you to. So both of them, it just depends on what you prefer, but this is in the sales tab. This is the expenses tab. So you can get to a lot of that same information. Journal entry, I don't think you have access to that one. I mean, you have access to it from here. I can access it from the briefcase. Journal entry is how accounting entries are actually made. I need to debit this account and have an offsetting credit to this account. QuickBooks works in a way that you don't need to know what the journal entry is. It gives you a map to being able to get the entries far enough, and QuickBooks will take you the rest of the way. That's why it's so key for clients. So I would tell people, focus on this tab here to navigate, and you're gonna be okay. The first tab, and probably the most important tab, is your banking tab. Here, you can link up to 25 accounts. checking accounts, savings accounts, credit card accounts. Credit cards are key because typically that's where most of your expenses are going through are your credit cards. And I tell people the best way to lower your tax liability is to make sure you capture all of your expenses. So if you're paying a lot of expenses on your credit card, it's not good enough to just tell me, oh, well, I paid $300 on my credit card. That's the expense. No, that's not the expense. The expense is what you actually purchased on your credit card. The payment you made to your credit card is the repayment of the loan that your credit card provider provided you. And that's a different entry. So it's important that we link those accounts to the QuickBooks account. And remember, in this banking section, this is automatically bringing in your banking transactions. You cannot bank from this screen. You can't pay bills from this screen. You can't accept payments from this screen. This is only bringing in the transactions. There are apps that you can add to QuickBooks that will allow you to do a bill payment. So that option does exist, but that is not what this screen does. PayPal, link PayPal. So if it behaves like a bank or if you've got money going through there, I would suggest you link those accounts. And it really does eliminate human error. Business bank accounts. If you have a business bank account and you have personal transactions going through that bank account, that's okay. We need to classify them. We would classify them accordingly, but we need them to come through. So just quickly on the banking screen, if you'll notice, this block here is blue and white. What this indicates is that this is the block that we are currently looking at. These transactions that are, here we go, down here, these are the associated transactions with this bank account. And the same, if I click on this one, now we see that we're on this set of transactions, and the same is true for the MasterCard. Okay, we've got two numbers, bank balance and what's in QuickBooks. And then we've got this third number here that says 25. What this is telling me is that there are 25 transactions that need to be classified. These here are our 25 transactions that need to be classified. Our bank balance should equal what is in QuickBooks. If it doesn't equal what is in QuickBooks, then we are out of balance. We need to understand what was done incorrectly and then go back and correct it. It is very easy to classify in QuickBooks. Over to the side, you'll see, so this is just an average transaction that comes through. I just click on a piece of blank area and I can bring up the detail. Here, a lot of times for me as the professional, I can get some detail. So I see that money came in. I'm going to assume that's revenue. I go to my drop-down menu. I decide, let's see here, this is received, books by Bessie's, but remember I'm a landscaping company, so I gave them pest control services, right? And I know that is an income account as indicated on my drop-down menu. Let's say, for instance, Books by Bessie, I offered them a brand new service, and I had not come up with a general ledger account yet, but I decided this was varmint removal services. I can easily add that GL account. I click the add button, it takes me to the screen to where I can add that general ledger account, and then I would make the appropriate changes. So once you learn what those changes are, how to make those, you see it's easy to get to it. I can save and close it and then appropriately classify that transaction. Or maybe you've hired me and I've gone through and I've set up all the general ledger accounts that you need. So now all you know is, hey, I want pest control. I typed in pest control, that populated, I've selected it. My next step is to simply add that transaction. Maybe my customer is not Books by Bessie, maybe it's actually Cigna Healthcare, okay? I can quickly add that transaction. Now, I've got 24 transactions left to classify. What QuickBooks has done in the background is that they have credited your sales and debited the associated checking account that money came in through. okay? So it's very easy to classify transactions. You'll have on this side, you'll see here, match. So in this particular instance, you probably sent out an invoice, and QuickBooks saw when you created an invoice, QuickBooks did the accounting. They debited accounts receivable and credited sales. So QuickBooks did that automatically. All you did was create the invoice, okay? The next appropriate transaction when you get the cash is to offset that receivable with the appropriate credit and then debit checking. You don't need to know that. All you have to do is go to QuickBooks and see that, oh, it already noticed that there was, you've got an invoice for this exact same amount that's come through. I wonder if this is what this cash is. It gives you the option to match it. So now you can match that transaction and you're in very good shape. They offer one other option on this side. It's called transfer. Do not use the transfer feature. I cannot implore that enough. There are some things that work very well in QuickBooks. There are some things that do not work well at all in QuickBooks. Transfer is one of them that I'm always cleaning up. The reason is because it is confusing. The transfer feature is designed if you have more than one account linked to QuickBooks, and you actually transfer from savings to checking, and you can select that. What happens is that a lot of people may only have one account, or they may be transferring from an outside account. But when the transaction comes through, in this section down here, it says transfer in the description. QuickBooks sees transfer. QuickBooks then gives you the option to transfer. And you then say, oh, transfer, hit transfer. And now the complete transaction is incorrect because it's clunky acting. So instead, add and match. Don't use the transfer feature. That's my main takeaway in this section. Key points in this section. You can create rules. Rules are really cool. Rules have been around for a while, but they've made it really helpful now. What QuickBooks will notice, if you are classifying the same thing multiple times, for instance, sit-go, and you always make it fuel. Eventually, after like 3 or 4 transactions, QuickBooks will say, hey, you want to just make a rule that every time it says sit-go, we make this fuel? And you say yes, and it will automatically do it for you. It will save you a ton of time. The flip side of it is you want to make sure that you're always following that rule. So let's say, for instance, you go to Restaurant Depot, or no, you go to Walmart. And 75% of the time you go to Walmart, it's for ingredients for cost of goods sold. But then there's also times you buy office equipment from Walmart, or you might buy restaurant equipment from Walmart. The rules won't apply as well because it expects the same result every time. So you got to be careful with rules. But if you utilize it correctly, it works great. Other features with the banking section, as you notice, we've got these transactions here. This was for review. This was categorized. If you mess something up, if you think you classified something incorrectly, just undo it. And it goes right back to the for review section, right? So QuickBooks, I tell everybody, get in there, play around with it. You're not going to mess it up. It's not going to be something that I can't fix. Most times, you don't delete things out of QuickBooks. Most times, it just goes someplace else. Usually, when you're going to actually delete something from QuickBooks, it'll say, hey, you know you're getting ready to delete me for real. And so you've got that option there. Finally, you've got the excluded section. You're not going to use that a whole lot. And then lastly, you can organize this information as you see fit. But the banking section is where I spend the bulk of my work. We're classifying transactions, and then a lot of the other work is examining the financial statement. But this is a key section. Yes, ma'am.
So what version of this is it? The Simple Start? Is it?
So as we talked before, so all of the versions link QuickBooks. The question is, was it the lowest level version. And I saw on the page, they are still offering self-employed. Self-employed, I can tell you without a doubt, stay away from it. I only recommend that for people who are literally only working on the weekends. And maybe they got for the year $10,000 in revenue. Like it's just, I mean, all it's gonna do is get your taxes filed, okay? I believe that Simple Start, at least in the past, and I see they brought it back, you're gonna get the full suite of services. So I would check, you can always upgrade. So for right now, I'm telling everyone essentials, but I'm gonna definitely be looking at Simple Start to see if it offers everything. And if it does, I would go with that one. And the main key was, do you have that balance sheet? Are you getting the full set of financial statements? But once you get into that level, so whether it's Simple Start or Essentials, they all look like this. Self-employed doesn't even look like this. It looks completely different. So you know immediately. You actually kind of leave out of this screen to go into self-employed. So the banking screen, I spent a lot of time on this one. It's really important. This is where, this is going to be the foundation. This is where your accounting is done at, right? I go to, if I need to do something special, I'll go to journal entries and, manually make the entry where now I'm going to, debit and credit and put in descriptions and accounts. So this is more, accounting for real kind of stuff. But the banking section is intended for you to do your accounting, and this is going to handle most of the issues that you have. However, when I come to correct things, it's the balance sheet in this section where I spend a lot of my time at. The other page that I like a lot is the sales page. So not everybody utilizes it. I utilize it a lot. I use QuickBooks to operate my business. So on the sales page, you can invoice people. You can invoice, you can create estimates, you can have delayed charges. You can also utilize QuickBooks Payments. With QuickBooks Payments, that is their payment processing system. So, if you go in here, you create an invoice. We're gonna just pull up somebody. Oh, they got me doing some stuff. So this only happens every now. This only happens when you first start up your account. So they're kind of treating me like that. So you wouldn't see this. Blah blah blah. Finish. Okay. So now we can create an invoice. We can choose terms, whether we want due on receipt, net 30 days. We have an invoice date. We talked about that product or service before. Here is gardening, weekly gardening service. We just need to enter in the rate. We'll say it's $100. And so now we've created a professional invoice. And if you want to see it, and there we go. And so this is what your client would see. If you have your logo included, your logo would appear right here. So it gives you a very professional view. If you don't want to include your address because you work from home, that's fine. If you had more detail in the description, it would appear here. You can also add more messaging. And then remember, you have the options to customize your invoices as well. So you could change the color scheme, you can change where some of this information is. So it's not a lot of customization, but there is some customization. And I think that's key. You can take invoices and they turn estimates and turn into invoices. So once again, as I mentioned, I also collect payments. So I will, save and send. My client will then get the invoice via email, and on that email, there will be a big green Pay Now button. They can click that button, input in their debit or credit card information, and just pay me that way. And so I really like that because it makes invoicing and collecting payments seamless. It also gives my client an easy way to pay me. And I'm a firm believer in that the easier you make it for people to pay you, the more likely it is that you're going to get paid. You can also, if you needed to, physically input in the credit card information into the system. Did you have a question?
Yeah, is there automation with QuickBooks?
Yes, so you can automate here. We've got create recurring invoice. So now you can get your customer or client's credit card information, and maybe they've got you on retainer. I've got some clients that have me on retainer, or we moved to a retainer-based model rather. So now I can just input that retainer amount in there, and on the day that is specified, an invoice will go out and it will collect payment. And then also QuickBooks provides a standardized form that you would provide to your customer or client that authorizes you to collect payment, so that you've got that protection as well. The other part that I really find that is key with regards to the sales screen is being able to manage your outstanding customers. So here, let me go here. Let's see here. We've got sales. Here we go. So here we've got open invoices. And so one, this gives me a lot of information. I know that I've got $5,300 in open invoices, 21 total invoices. I've been paid $3,000 in the last 12 days. I can actually see, there's one of these screens here that can show me who recently paid me. I can also see I've got 10 overdue, $1,500. I've got an aging here. So now, right, I can see here per this aging report, all these people are still current. They're not quite due yet. They're not due to the 3rd, the 1st. But once I come down here, here are the people that owe me money. They're 5 days late. They're 21 days late. They're 44 days late. These are the people that I need to contact. Hey, we haven't received payment yet. In QuickBooks here, and what I do is I do this on a Monday. Get up. And I go down to batch actions, and I will select all of my people that are overdue very easily. And I'll come up here and select batch actions and send reminders. And this will casually send out a reminder that the invoice is due. So this helps you with your collection process as well, and people respond to it. So I think that is important. You can attach things here. So really, this sales screen, I use this screen a lot to manage my business, especially as it pertains to invoicing. When I invoice, I'm going to be looking, did I invoice the amount that I needed to invoice for clients this month? If I didn't, why not? If I did, what did I do well? What are the number of invoices? That's something that I'm starting to manage, right? Because I would prefer to hit my invoice number on a lot of invoices than do it on just one or two. Because what happens if I lose those one or two? So they tell me that information. I know who's late, and I got some people there that I'm just holding on to, but I really need to write them off. I'm not gonna get that money, okay? It just is what it is. But there are some people that surprise you. So I'll usually keep somebody on, for maybe a year. And there are some clients that slow pay, and I get that, and I work with my clients in the whole 9 yards. And I think that overall, everyone wants to do the right thing. You provide a good product or service, and they want to take care of you. So here, I've got a way to manage it. And I know exactly who it is, what they owe. One cool thing about the invoicing that we didn't talk about is that you can attach items to it. So for instance, and down here, you can send an attachment. So for me, like I said, I've now moved to a retainer-based model, but prior to that, when it's just straight billable hours, I will attach an Excel spreadsheet that indicates the time that I worked. And that helps because when someone, if 3 months have passed and someone says, hey, I've got this invoice, or what'd you do? I can pull up that Excel spreadsheet and say, oh, well, on this date I did this, on this date I did that. So that's a really good CYA. So I enjoy the sales screen. Cash flow. Cash flow is a new screen. This is really about analyzing your cash flow. It's an extension of the report screen, so it's definitely something that you can play around with. Expenses. I do not use this screen this much This is for accounts payable. Works very well for managing accounts payable. I've got a manufacturing client. They have a lot of accounts payable. So when you enter in, like for instance, you've got a new transaction, you would enter in a bill, and a bill would create an accounts payable transaction. My sentiment is the same as it is with inventory. If you're getting bills and you're going to pay those in 30 days, we don't need to put it on accounts payable. If you're going to pay it, reasonable amount of time. Why? Because everything is linked to the banking section. So if you're paying it through your business bank account, I'm going to see it come through the business bank account. And for tax purposes, I have all of my clients on cash basis accounting, right? The two bases of accounting are cash versus accrual. Cash says I record revenue when I receive the cash, I record expenses when I pay it. Accrual says I record revenue when I earn it, I record expenses when I incur them. The difference is, as a service provider, I invoice people. If I invoice someone $100,000 on 12/31 and I am accrual basis, accrual says I have to recognize that as revenue. I now owe taxes on that $100,000 because it was a receivable on 12/31. Cash basis says that, well, you didn't get any money, so you don't have to pay tax on that money until you receive it. So then I can go into the next year, receive that money, and then pay taxes on it. So for all of that, you don't need to have accounts payable. So I usually don't have people on the expenses tab. The vendor portion of it, though, is very good, especially if you have contractors. You would input your contractors here, and you can manage like 1099 contractors' time on that vendor section. So the expenses tab, I only look for that vendor section. Remember, we can get to information different ways. We click on this new tab. We could go here, and I thought that I would see 1099 people, but I did not. But essentially, this is where I would go to add my contractors. Projects, we talked about that. That is for QuickBooks Plus. Essentially, it allows you, this is really good for contractors, and they want to like job cost. So, I've got people that flip houses. So we may have, each house may be its own project. So we can manage just those expenses, and it provides like a small P&L, and then we can have one large P&L that includes all the business you've done. So I don't know if that's something that you would utilize or not. Payroll. So here I see they moved that from the expenses tab to the payroll tab. Here is where I would add my contractors. And essentially, this is where you would put their W-9 information. Name, social, address. So at the end of the year, for those that have made more than $600 a month, you can pay them 1099s. If you've got them here on your contractors tab, on the banking tab, when you go to classify them, let's say here, Hicks Hardware, let's just go to categorize. I would just select that particular contractor. Let's say this is a contractor. At the end of the year, I can run a report that shows how much I paid my individual contractors. So if you have 1099 people that work for you, maybe you're a food truck, maybe you're catering events, you want to enter in those people, those contractors onto the payroll section, and when you classify payments to them in the banking section, indicate who you paid, and that way at the end of the year, you can run that report and easily see who you need to pay 1099 information to. So you see here, it talks about prepare 1099s. We're going to go to reports last because that's most important to you as a business owner. Taxes. This is not federal withholding taxes or state withholding tax. This is only sales tax. As food providers, if you sell food prepared in a ready-to-eat fashion with utensils, you are subject to sales tax. If you provide food unprepared, I still got to go home and do something to it. It is not taxable for sales tax. here is where so this tax page actually runs a sales tax report. We would indicate that, state of Michigan, 6%. There's a lot more that goes in with sales tax. Some of you may be selling online, so you need to understand what nexus means. Nexus means you have a presence. If you sell someplace out of state and don't have a presence physically out of state, you don't owe state sales tax. So let's say, for instance, I'm a food owner or seller in Michigan, but I have an online web page. I have nexus to Michigan, meaning my office is here, I cook here, I owe Michigan sales tax, but I've made online sales to Chicago. I don't have any presence in Chicago. I do not own sales tax in Chicago. Let's say I partner with a buddy of mine in Texas, and they set up a sales office in Texas, and I make online sales to Texas. I do owe sales tax in Texas because we have set up Nexus and have a presence there. So that's just a little bit more on sales tax. This screen is primarily for sales tax and running sales tax reports, because if you are collecting sales tax, you are required to remit sales tax to the state of Michigan on a monthly or quarterly period. So you need to be doing that. The mileage screen, this is very good. This works in conjunction with your app. As food providers, I expect you guys to have a lot of mileage. You're running, you're buying ingredients, you're going to events, all types of driving around. You get in your car, you activate the GPS on the app and just indicate that you're working, and it will track your mileage for you. So now at the end of the year, you've got an end of the year mileage report that you can use for tax purposes. So I would definitely, I really like that one. Accounting. This is your chart of accounts. The chart of accounts is where all of your general ledger accounts live. You're not really going to be here a lot. This is more sort of for your accountant's purposes. They have, and I don't know why QuickBooks does this, but they've got these numbers here under QuickBooks balance. If you notice, these are only balance sheet accounts. Now we're into the income statement accounts. They don't have numbers there. Don't pay any attention to these numbers. These numbers don't mean anything. This is just a straight up chart of accounts, and it's only for housing where your general accounts live. QuickBooks offers a reconcile feature. I do not use or suggest the reconcile feature. Essentially, it allows you, because it brings in the bank statements, it allows you to reconcile the books. However, you cannot reconcile the financial statements that QuickBooks produces against the system that QuickBooks is. You can't reconcile yourself against yourself. So it's an inherently flaw in its design, and then it creates these weird discrepancies. I don't abide by it. I fall back on what I did as an auditor and provide bank reconciliations, where your financial statements should be based off of your business bank account. So I don't really get down with the reconcile feature. My accountant, that's just a portal for trading information. Reports. This is by far the screen that you should be working in the most. There are a ton of reports here, as you can see. Lots of different ways you can see information, lots of different ways you can view information. QuickBooks provides you with a full set of financial statements, balance sheet, profit and loss statement, statement of cash flows, statement of retained earnings, and your AR and AP aging reports. Management report, I really like the management report, just to kind of show you one real quick. So when someone calls me up and says, hey, my lender wants financial statements, my investor wants financial statements, usually I'll give them a financial report. So it comes up, looks a little bit more professional. You've got that management report at the top. Here in this blank space, you would see your company logo. It'll have prepared by, usually it'll say prepared by Ashton BC or Dale Grant, Ashton BC CPA. So now that person knows it's been professionally prepared. And then here we've got a profit and loss statement And we've got our balance sheet. I think this one was just the simplified version. Let's see here. Standard custom reports. There was another one. I was noticing that they didn't include the statement of cash flows, but we do have that available. It just may be how they ran it. So once again, P&L. P&L is what most business owners want to see. So this P&L is developed simultaneously with your QuickBooks when you are in the banking section. So as you saw, we classified that transaction. If we run a P&L for that same period, it will automatically bring up that information. This P&L is highly customizable. You can run it for any period. So you can run it for all dates, you can run it for just today, and this is for any report. All dates, just today, last quarter, last year. You can just enter in the dates here. You can, maybe you want to look at this over a period of months. So we said January to August. I can run the report like this. And now I can maybe see a trend. Oh, we were slower in April and May, and then in July we exploded, and then we had a good August. So if you want to see your information in different ways, I'm sure some of you who are food entrepreneurs have seasonal business. It may correspond to when certain crops are grown, or for those that have food trucks. I know there are food truck rallies in the summer, or if you are selling baked goods and the holidays are a really important time for you. So you can look at your report by month and really kind of track when your money's coming in, when you're incurring the most expenses. So it just gives you another way to look at your information. Let's see here, the Dow run report. We're gonna run this cash basis. So now we've got this for August, we've got this for January to August, but maybe I wanna see how I did last year. Oh, we don't have last year's. I take that back. So we'll go back to this year to date and see here what they've done is they've actually created some sub-accounts for their job materials. So we've got landscape services, job materials. They've also got it so those sub-accounts we can collapse. This is important. I have another food service provider, and their cost of goods is extensive. There might be, 15 line items, and it was just too much. And I said, and everybody said, this is just too much. I said, you know what? I don't want to get rid of that stuff because for management purposes, internally, you guys want that information. You want to know the individual cost of goods sold so that you can manage it. But externally, your lender doesn't need to know that granular level of detail, nor do they want it because it makes the statements too complex for them to read. So you know what? Why don't we just collapse it? We don't have to change what we're doing. We can just make it a sub-account and collapse it, and that way provide them with the information they need, but you can still retain the information that you need, okay? But once again, like last week, we talked about the profit and loss statement and the financial and the balance sheet. So now this is what we're actually looking at, where we can see the income that we've earned, what we've gotten from, so we've got design income, we've got our total income, pest control services. So we make a lot of money from landscaping services. So we probably want to push that a whole lot more than everything else. We've got our cost of goods sold, right? We can look at this on a monthly basis and see, are we managing our cost of goods sold? What's even better is, so let's say we've got cost of goods sold and we want to know, well, what makes that up? So you see I can hover over this, I can highlight it, and I can see the detail for what's in my cost of goods sold. These are the individual transactions that we classified in the banking section. I can click on this one more time, and now this is the actual transaction. And if I needed to change, well, this was associated with the check, but if I needed to change where it's classified at, I could do that with a quick click of a button. So it's very easy for me to go in especially for my clients, assess what they're doing, determine if I think it's correctly classified, and correct it if it's not. And the same is true for you as a business owner, where I may have things, sometimes if I don't know where it goes in uncategorized expense, and that's just for it to live temporarily until I can talk to you. You may look over and say, oh, what, all that, that's all purchases I made at Eastern Market. You can just put all that to cost of goods sold. Or, you know what, no, that was in May, I went down there and I bought flowers that was just a personal expense. And you can go in there easily and make that change. And as you notice, I was able to get to all of that information very quickly just from that P&L, just from inquiring, what made up that total cost of goods sold. I went in, I saw the detail. Okay, Hicks Hardware, don't quite remember this. I'll go back, let me see more. And eventually I can go back to where it was at in the banking screen. So I really do like that feature. That feature can't be spoken about enough. There are other accounting softwares I have worked where it was not as easy to change entries. For some people don't like that because they want things to stay the same, but for others, I'd rather be able to go in there and make sure it's correct. With my clients that I work with, it's pretty much understood that myself and my team, we're the only ones in there. So I don't expect to see anything, all crazy and whatnot. But as you can see, you're given that full profit and loss statement. And here, once we've classified everything correctly, we can get a high-level viewpoint of where we're spending our money at. We can kind of see, we got $900 in rent. We spent $400 with the attorney. Our accountant was $325. So this gives us a way to manage our expenses. We've got miscellaneous expenses of $2,900. That's way too much to be miscellaneous. I want to go in here and see what this is. Well, I see Hicks Hardware should be put someplace else, insurance agency, so this just needs to be corrected. And then once again, I now can make better decisions about my business. I can see, oh, I had a loss at the end of the year, or at the end of the month. Let's pretend this wasn't there and we just had net operating income of $1,000. But my bank account only has a couple $100. I may be wondering, where's that money at? Maybe I withdrew it and forgot about it, but you've got it. The other report that is incredibly important is your balance sheet. And so this is going to tell you where you are at a period in time. We talked about this last week, but it's managing that balance sheet. You want to make sure that these accounts are tied to their associated banking statements. That's how we provide supporting documentation for anyone who questions it. And this happens if you're going to go get a bank loan. Lenders are not as adept, especially non-commercial lenders. So getting an auto loan, a bank loan. You give them a W-2, they're with that all day. You tell them you're a business owner and you got to give them tax returns and they got to go ask somebody for some help, and it's just a whole thing. And so I actually have to prepare this for someone else because there was a question, but we can support this with supporting documentation that shows that this bank account is tied, that the financial statements are tied to the bank account. But here you'll see these other entries here on this balance sheet, and we talked about this. We've got our receivables out there, here, undeposited funds. So this is that we got $2,000 that we indicated we recorded a payment, but we haven't put that money in the bank. So we want to know what's going on with that. This truck needs to have some depreciation associated with it, but it's on our balance sheet. So if we have to give this document to an end user, a lender, they can take a look and see the financial position you're in. They may say, hey, you got a $25,000 note payable. I'm not sure, but then you can show them your P&L and see that you've got the cash to cover your debt service coverage. So this is what they're going to be looking for. This is a great tool set that you can use to provide them with the information they need. And this is exactly what it is they're looking for. So today was just a quick high-level overview of QuickBooks. Just to reiterate, we saw that they look like they've added Simple Start to the offering. So I think that one may be good to go because they are still offering self-employed. I am adamantly or vehemently against self-employed. It's not as good, but as long as Simple Start looks like this, and you can give me a call, you can ask me to take a look at it, but as long as Simple Start looks like this and that you're getting your full set of financial statements at $12.50, $25 after the introductory period, I think that you're getting great value there. Even QuickBooks Essentials, it goes up to $50 a month, but you're still getting a lot of value there. So that, along with being able to link your bank account, is huge. QuickBooks payments to process payments and to invoice clients. If you're not using a point of sale system, this is a good one. If you are using a point of sale system, it can talk to this one. That's big. And then once again, the reports that it provides, that's really, what you're paying for. Everything else is just add-ons to make you want to use the software, but being able to provide a full set of financial statements, that gives you that legitimacy and the documentation that you need as a business owner to work with other organizations and entities that are going to provide you with funding and or capital. So with that, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so you said if you use another POS, that it will work with QuickBooks, so I use Square, so that will link with QuickBooks?
So yes, the question is, just to reiterate, will all POSs work with QuickBooks? I can't say for certain all will, most will. There should be something on that website that allows Square to link with QuickBooks. Now, Square specifically, some people simply use Square to transact, just to process payments, and that goes right to your bank account. So it doesn't necessarily need to be linked to QuickBooks because we've already linked to the bank account. But if there's something else along with it, and I know that Square has additional capabilities, so once again, if you've got your product list in there along with your cost of goods sold, the ingredients that's associated with it, and we want to get that information over the QuickBooks, then we definitely want to look at mapping it, and so that it can talk with it, and we can figure that out. So it's an easy thing to do. I know I had to get on the phone, but you can work through it. It's not too difficult. Are there any other questions? Okay, so with that, once again, I just kind of got into it, so I want to take this opportunity to thank Christine Kwan and Eastern Market for inviting us down here, as well as, is it Lake Trust Credit Union? Yeah. Lake Trust Credit Union for sponsoring this series through Eastern Market. So last week we discussed the financial statements and the various reports that you will need. This week was a focus on QuickBooks and how to produce all of those reports that were in there. And I believe that next week we're going to be focusing on the additional reports that lenders are going to be looking at. So we're going to be talking about what is a personal financial statement, and then we're also going to be talking about sources and uses documents, as well as some of those offshoot documents that lenders may ask for. So to give you sort of a full toolkit, not only to help organize your business, but when you are ready to go either look for a loan or investments or apply for grants. I saw this a lot with the pandemic and grant applications, that a lot of people that qualified and could have used that money weren't able to get grant money that didn't need to be paid back, weren't able to get grant money because they did not have their financial statements in order. And so that's really when I talk about the value that this brings. If you got this in place, even if it's a little bit out of balance, I can get it back into balance within a couple of days. That's not an issue. But you want to have this information available to you. And not just for the grants, that's the immediate purpose, but more so that you can pull it up and analyze it and see how you can improve your business. So once again, Thank Eastern Market, Christine Kwan, and Lake Trust. My name is Dale Grant. I am with Ashton BC, CPAs, and we will see you guys next week.